Hey, what's up, Triple P Nation? This week's episode is brought to you by Triple P Life Nutrition, helping you optimize your health and performance.
Welcome
to the Age of Awakening.
Please identify yourself. Enter.
Hey, what's up, Triple P Nation? Welcome back to the podcast, where, like every week, we're going to explore the tools, tactics, and strategies for you so you can achieve personal and business mastery. For those who don't know, the mission of this podcast is to help entrepreneurs and professionals like you learn and grow in the four key areas of life, which are mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And this week, specifically, we're going to be talking kind of a combination of all four here. We'll get to the topic here in just a minute. And the whole premise behind our mission is to help you live your best life, which is what we call your Triple P life. So welcome. I'm your host, Dr. J. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining us on all our platforms. We're on all the podcast platforms, YouTube. Again, comment, hit the share, the like button, the follow, the subscribe. You know the deal. You guys are regular podcast listeners. You know what we ask for. That's all we ask for. Is so you know when the next episode is going to drop, and you can be ready to hear the content we've got coming out for you. And we've got a lot of great content, like we've already had up to this point this year. And so we want to really continue to deliver on that promise of giving you great content that's going to help up-level your life in every area of your life. This week's topic is about grit and resiliency, mostly resiliency. We're going to talk about what they are and what's the difference between the two, but we're going to emphasize resiliency because if you recall last week's show, we talked about managing expectations and just how powerful when expectations go awry can be on our self-fulfillment, our joy, our happiness, and our ability to dust ourselves off and to proceed and pursue our goals. And we all have experienced unmet expectations. We could probably recall back when we were a child. So I talked about the primary reason it really messes with our head is oftentimes we don't know why the expectation wasn't met. And that really screws with us. And the key to overcoming that is really a sense of faith, of understanding that maybe it wasn't our time to achieve that goal or to have that experience. Maybe there is something that needs to happen in advance for us to get to that point. Maybe we're supposed to go in a different direction. So it's the why and the lack of faith of understanding that something good or better is around the corner. Well, resiliency really plays into that. We're going to get into that deep here today. But before we do, we always talk about our weekly success snack feature, and it's a story of two brothers. You might have heard this before, maybe not, but it's a story of two brothers who were raised by an alcoholic father. One grew up to be an alcoholic, and when asked what happened, he said, "Yeah, I watched my dad." And the other grew up and never drank once. And when he was asked, he said, "I watched my dad." Well, wait a second. Two kids, the same exact environment, the same upbringing, the whole 9 yards, but two totally different outcomes. Well, because life rarely is about what happens to you, and more so about how you respond what happens to you, which is why the topic resiliency is perfect. I'm sure growing up, your parents or somebody told you something along the lines of, "Hey, life isn't fair." And there's some truth to that, right? Life's not always going to be fair. Things are not always going to work out for you. Sometimes life will straight up smack you and kick you right in the teeth, perhaps today. But the outcome of your life depends entirely on how you respond to those events. The question becomes, are you going to crumble? Or is it going to help you spiral and soar and overcome a negative mindset? Is it going to push you forward? It's going to teach you how to stay positive in a negative situation and to be confident and be abundant, knowing that good things are heading your way. You see, guys, the choice is yours, but it's important to note it is a choice. So let's get into this topic of resiliency. As you know, you guys, we're all bombarded with advertisement and messages that tell us all the time that life really should be easy and that all our problems can be solved by some company's product, this particular drug, buying this bottle of alcohol, government telling you, just listen to us, we'll treat you well. Yeah, we know that is a lot of crap. But we also know that it's simply not true. God, life is hard, and it tends to get harder as we go. Believe me, I've been on this earth a few years. I know that. But we also get stronger as we go if we're paying attention, we're intentional, and we're aware. Because then we can learn to deal with hardship more effectively. Because we're going to gain some wisdom, some skill sets. We're going to gain fortitude. And critically, we can become more resilient. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from challenging or traumatic situations. You have all had them. I have had them. I can list them. It's probably on a journal 100 pages long. So the question then becomes, if we're going to be resilient, we got to be able to adapt and overcome the adversities and setbacks so we can emerge stronger and better, stronger human beings. For me, I think resilience is one of my superpowers, and I'm blessed to think that and to own that because it has allowed me to access a level of tenacity to overcome and to persevere. And I would suggest that each and every one of you has your own experiences of resiliency. I want you to take a moment right now and just think, clear your mind, think of something recent that occurred to you that set you back, that you were able to bounce back and deal with elegantly, calmly, and rationally to move forward and not let that setback define you. Think about it. Now, as you put that memory back to the forefront of your mind, I want you to anchor yourself with this because it's really important for you to know you are already resilient, or at least you've experienced a level of resiliency. Here's the beautiful thing, right? We can all learn to become more resilient. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But I bet you can point to numerous experiences in your life that you've overcome. Some you haven't, some you're still dealing with, and some because you've yet to face and address are holding you back from achieving your best life. For those of you who don't know my story, when I was in my 20s, I was so angry at everything and everyone in the world around me. It nearly cost everything. Nearly cost me my business, my family, my marriage, everything. And I kept suppressing the feeling, the emotion, because I didn't want to face it. And I kept saying, yeah, I'm just wired this way. I'm just an angry SOB. Well, that's not really true. Until that one day, that one moment, everything came to the surface. Sorry to use this analogy. It's kind of like when a pimple comes to a head. You got to clean that pore out. And that vessel was me. And I was holding it, and was just ready to explode. I know you're all thinking of that image. I know it's gross, but you get the point. And that's why I work. It was one night I was watching a movie. It was the movie called Field of Dreams. And I realized at that moment in time, the emotion I've been suppressing is the feeling and the experience I had with my dad growing up, or didn't have. That sense of abandonment, seeing that wounded, injured little boy, wondering why his father left. And taking the responsibility that it was me. He left because I must have done something, or he didn't love me, or I didn't deserve his love. Guys, a lot of you have experienced something similar. Man, and there's no greater hurt or pain than that. And I didn't want to address it because I didn't want to admit it. But based on my personality type, the way I deal with stress is through anger. So it kept manifesting in all types of ways by having this anger, this volatile anger express. I mean, you never knew when I was going to blow up in the smallest, stupidest little things. Until one day my wife said to me, she says, you got to get a hang of that. We're done. I love you, but I can't handle it. And that was a wake-up call. And I knew at that moment in time, I need to figure out what it was. And as God in his own brilliance, that evening when everyone went to bed, I was watching that movie for God knows how many times, one of my favorite movies. At that end of the movie, when Kevin Costner says to Ray Liotta as he was about to walk back out into the field, he says, Dad, you want to have a catch? And man, I just lost it. And I realized at that time it was the wounded little child inside me, the pain that I was experiencing. So I wasn't resilient at that time because I didn't face it. I kept suppressing it. So to grow yourself, you need to figure out what has affected you, what past injuries, what past experiences are you suppressing that you need to work through so you can bounce back, you can address, you can deal, process, and decide to leave that experience and emotion behind. Not that it goes away, but it no longer defines you in the future. And that's the real freedom that occurs with dealing with past injuries, emotional injuries. To me, that's when my resiliency really became my superpower, because I realized if I can overcome that, there isn't anything I couldn't overcome. And although that experience was incredibly painful for weeks, months, that introspection, self-reflection, self-awareness, acknowledging and addressing was really, really, really tough. But it was almost a sense of cleansing too. I felt lighter. I felt like finally I understood my triggers. So therefore I can choose to make different decisions and choose different emotions. And then I started, as life would have it, right? I met my real first mentor coach, and he taught me about the 8 habits of success. Actually, he didn't term it that way. These are the things that I learned that I then took and put into my book, Change Your Mind, Change Your Destiny, the 8 Habits of Success. That I literally began to shift and rewire and change my subconscious mindset, the pre-programming from the trauma of my childhood that occurred from 3 months to 12 years old that was ingrained in my subconscious mind. And so therefore, any stress in my life would trigger that response based on that pain. And we all experience it. You experience it. I experience it. Everyone does. Even if you have the greatest of childhoods, right? There's some level to it. Now, certainly may not have the same impact as it did with me or other people, but it's still there. And it may not have any power over you, and that's great as well too. But think about a time in your life, the biggest obstacle that you've overcome, that you've dealt with, you've faced, you've addressed, and proceeded forward successfully. That's what I'm trying to say. You are already a resilient monster. But let's specifically get into how to begin to shape and improve your level of resiliency, because resiliency is no different than leadership or any other skill set, learning how to play the piano, improving your fitness. It's just something you learn, you develop, you grow, and you apply, and you keep reapplying. Because challenge, change, and failure, guys, are a normal part of life. The question is, are we going to deal with it successfully, or is it going to define us and cause us to crumble? Will we emerge stronger, or are we going to emerge weaker? The beauty is we get to decide that based on the actions that we take. Now, as I mentioned previously, resilience is described as your ability to adapt well to adversity and or change. One thing you got to know and accept, and once I accepted this, my life radically changed for the better, is that change is normal, change is good, change is happening all the time. You're not the same person you were a month ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago. You don't think the same way, you don't look the same way, you don't act in the same way. And even though you may look in the mirror and you go, I look fairly similar, man, you're changing. You're changing. Your body's changing. Your mindset's changing. Your abilities are changing. So accepting the fact that change is normal and change is good allows us to face life with a very, very different mindset. This allows us to sustain really good mental and physical well-being. And it provides us the energy when we're under constant or acute stress or pressure that adversity and resiliency put us under. You see, it's not a trait that people have or don't have. In other words, you're not born being resilient, right? Rather, resilience includes several components that I'm going to get to, but I want to delineate the difference between grit and resiliency. So let me talk about that just here for a second. Grit refers to a combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals, right? So let's say you have a goal to, maybe you're in a small business right now and you want to scale that to multiple locations and you've got a 5-year plan, right? The grit staying on track to achieve that long-term goal. And it could be anything like that. Now, grit also is a key predictor of success in various areas of your life, including your education, obviously your professional career, and your personal achievements. Grit also involves a commitment to a particular passion or goal and the determination to achieve it over the long haul. Now, resiliency, on the other hand, resiliency refers, again, to our ability to bounce back from adversity or a difficult situation. It involves adapting to challenges, setbacks, traumas, stress, or being able to recover from them more effectively. Now, while grit and resilience share very same similarities, such as the ability to persist in the face of challenges, they also have very distinct focuses, because grit is more about long-term perseverance towards specific goals, while resiliency is about bouncing back from various setbacks and adapting to the adversity specifically. Now, both qualities are important for personal and professional success and growth, and they can complement each other in helping individuals navigate life challenges. I did a show on grit a couple of years ago. I might update one coming up here because these are so interrelated, these topics, and they're so critical to your success moving forward. And in particular, these are skill sets as we learn, we teach the little ones around us. And most of the times it's just through osmosis. They watch us handle stress. They watch us deal with stress. They watch us deal with change because kids are always watching. I've often said my kids learn more about what to do by watching me than listening to their old man just harp and tell them what they need to do. And without question, when I asked them and surveyed them about that, I said, did you learn more from the stuff I taught you or by watching? They'll say watching. So how you respond, your grit or your resiliency is becoming reflective in your kids. And man, if you can teach them that skill set, you are setting them up for success. Now, as I mentioned before, right, resiliency is something that you can learn and develop. And there's certain traits that we can develop. One is having a strong sense of self and self-control. Big one right there. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show here. It's also, another trait is being flexible in our ability to change. Also having specific, defined habits and routines with clear expectations. As I mentioned in a success snack, maybe 2 weeks ago, the one thing that all successful people share in common is their intentionality. Another trait is having a sense of humor, right? Seeing life for what it is, man. Sometimes it's a Greek tragedy, right? It's a drama. And you got to find the humor in it, man, because it can be heavy. Now, another trait is having the ability to empathize with yourself and others and your ability to verbalize it emotionally, right? It's okay to express how you feel. In fact, it's really a very positive thing to do. And of course, another trait that helps develop your resiliency is actually being physically well. We know that being in shape, our body's ability to adapt to stress in our environment is much more effective. Our ability to deal with the physical aspect of it is only enhanced by being physically in good shape. Another trait is being optimistic and courageous, having a level of determination and perseverance, which in some respects is resiliency, as we discussed. Also, having strong social connections, right? A network of people that can support you, right? Not tell you what you want to hear, but be there for you to be loving and kind and objective enough to tell you what you need to hear. And therefore, another great trait is having role models or coaches, people who are on your side that can see things objectively that you can't. And then another trait is having a sense of meaning and purpose in life. It just, when we feel like we're on track, we know what we're here for, our why per se, setbacks just become just that. They're just a little pebble on the road and the highway of life. That's all it becomes. So those are some of the traits, but I want to talk specifically. I want to share with you 3 ways you can become more resilient, specifically to failure. As you know, it really is impossible to live your life without ever failing. All right, let's just live in reality here, which is why being resilient is a really important, critical step to success. See, not only is this going to help you learn and cope and accept these feelings, but it's also going to help you better get past the setbacks in the future, because more are about to come. And as we know, failure may be an inevitable part of life, but that doesn't make it any less painful when it does happen, right? I mean, let's be honest. It can be particularly hard facing setbacks when you're younger because you haven't developed a skill set, especially in your 20s and 30s. And since this is really, for many, the first time people are really experiencing major failures, maybe they didn't do well in school or maybe they didn't get that first job that they desired. And this can make us feel like a failure and have a major impact on our mental well-being, with research actually linking this feeling to a greater risk of depression. So really, this may in turn lead to a negative feedback loop in which you're feeling more depressed and more likely to ruminate on the failures themselves and see yourself as a failure. Now, while resilience may come more naturally to some, That doesn't mean it can't be enhanced and learned by others. And here's 3 things I want you to really do and commit to build your own resiliency. So number 1 is get your butt moving. Again, as I mentioned before, oddly enough, being physically active can actually be really important helping to build your mental resilience. I find it's funny, when I'm hiring people for my team, I look for, believe it or not, wrestlers and marathon runners. Because if you've ever been involved in wrestling, these are some of the toughest, committed, gritty SOBs you'll ever want to meet. Wrestling practice is really tough, and being on that mat in that stupid little outfit in front of a bunch of people grappling is humbling as well too. So, and marathon runners, holy smokes, the commitment to run 26.2 or 4 miles, whatever it might be, that's a mental toughness. So I look for certain traits, certain abilities, and those are one of the ones from a physical fitness standpoint. The other thing I like to do when I'm going to consider hiring somebody is take them out on the golf course. You'll never learn more about someone than spending 5 hours on a golf course. How do they handle setback when they shank one in the woods, right? Do they throw their club down or snap their driver, right? What do they do when their balls line up against a tree? Do they use the old foot wedge? So it tells me, do they have integrity? Can they stay focused on the task at hand? Do they drink heavy on the court? There's a lot of things you can learn by playing golf. But in general, what I've learned with physical fitness for my own self, right, is a level of commitment to stick with it, challenge yourself, push yourself. And every time you grow to the next level, it just makes you stronger physically, gives you a greater sense of achievement and a greater sense of self-esteem. Research has found that both aerobic and weights can lead to more positive self-esteem. And of course, body image too, right? So really, regardless of your fitness level. Now, other studies that I've seen also show that simple things like walking can significantly improve the psychological well-being and self-esteem. So whether you're doing daily moderate exercise, vigorous exercise, weightlifting exercise, HIIT exercise, whatever it might be, if you're somebody that works out, it's somebody I'm interested in having on my team because I know they've already worked through resiliency and they've got grit. Now, the next of the 3, number 2, is write it down. So keeping a journal. Again, research shows that journaling can reduce the impact of a stressful life event as it helps us process painful emotions such as disappointment, if you're feeling anger, sad, or if you're feeling a sense of failure, and you get it on paper, you get it out of your head, you use your hand, you write it down. There's that kinesthetic response of shifting it from the conscious through the subconscious out to the hand that has a way to help us process it. It helps us reframe it. It helps us reframe those thoughts and feelings. So if you're not writing stuff down, if you're not using a journal, I would suggest adding that to one of your success habits. Try a gratitude journal. I actually have one right here. This is our Triple P Life Gratitude leather-bound journal here that I write in each and every day. I've got dozens of them. I put my MITs in there, my most important tasks, things that I want to accomplish each and every day. There's no more than 3, usually just 2, right? When I accomplish them, and by the way, that's the first thing I do is number 1. When I'm done, I put a V in red next to it. It means victory. It means I accomplished it. And then I go to the second. If I did not accomplish the first one, I don't go to the second one until the first one's done. If I don't complete the first one that day, then it goes on the next day. There's a system and process to success. I write down all sorts of ideas and concepts for the shows and ideas and articles. A lot of it's not good. Some of it's really good. I think having a journal is a great way to process your thoughts, your feelings, and to deal with setbacks. So, as I mentioned, studies have found that simply writing down what you're grateful for, 3 things a day, that's what I do, right? It's someone, something, and something yet to come. So the 3 things I write down in my gratitude journal each and every day. And I do this, by the way, at the end of the day, when the day is done, when my work day is done. So before I leave my studio here, I write down someone I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's an interaction I had that day. Maybe it was with a client. Maybe it was with a potential new client. Perhaps it was, with somebody in another business that I'm working with, a colleague, a friend, whatever it might be. I'll write down what I'm thankful for that person. And the thing is, when I can get it out, it's a lot easier then to express it to them as well too. And it's just amazing when you love on people and you authentically tell them how important they are and how much you appreciate them, man, how it makes their day to know how much you care and how much you think of them as far as, and just in good thoughts. So and sometimes I'll just think of someone randomly. Someone I might not have seen in a month, but they're part of my life. And I want to put that good energy and that good vibe out to the universe, and I want them to receive it back. Now, something, okay, it could be, I just landed a new deal, or maybe I wrote an incredible article, or maybe had a great mastermind today with our Money Mindset Mastermind group, and somebody had a breakthrough. Okay, so I find something to be grateful for. By the way, this builds your victory chest, right? This builds your self-esteem. This builds the concept that I win, right? I get stuff done. I'm effective. I help people achieve their goals. I see it right on paper, and I see it each and every day. You know what that does for your self-esteem? You know what that does for your confidence? Now, the last one is something yet to come. And this is always something that I'm working towards. As we're working on opening up our 19th business here, right? I'm thinking about, the success that we're going to have, the people we're going to serve, the life-changing experiences that they're going to have. I visualize that. I literally see it in my head, and I write that down, because the mind can't tell the difference between an actual event and one vividly imagined in great detail. That's called visualization. And the net effect is if I see it here first, my mind already believes it's happened. So my self-confidence that it's going to achieve is just soars. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that, and it's turned out exactly as I imagined it in my mind. Something yet to come. Get your journal. Start writing this stuff down. Okay, number 3, you need support from your friends and families. So not only are your closest relations probably the most important ones, they're probably the most important ones for your well-being. Because we know social connections are important for emotional stability and regulation, which of course is another major building block towards being resilient. When you know you have that support and that group around you that love you unconditionally and there to support you, not to tear you down, not to pee all over your dreams and tell you how crazy you are, it gives you the strength and the courage to face adversity and to overcome. By the way, if you don't have that support group, you need to find it. And if you are surrounded by people who tear you down, who don't support you, who don't encourage you, you got to find a new group, or you have to put boundaries and limits on your experiences and interaction with those people, even if they happen to be close family members. Believe me, I know I had to do that. Doesn't mean I shut them out of my life, but it does mean I create boundaries of what I will allow into my life and how I will engage them with them in my life. Because if you don't create the boundaries, they will continually, it's like someone picking out a scab. It's just like, stop, leave me alone. That thing's never going to heal. Boundaries are critical. And it's also your professional network, right? Are you around people really smart? Are you around people who are already successful that are doing the things that you want to do? Because you need that emotional support. You need to know that, especially if they've already been through what you're going through, again, gives you more self-confidence. If they did it, I can do it. Plus, I can learn from them how to get through it faster. So again, we know it's impossible to avoid failure. Building your mental resistance is a skill set that you can learn and get better at. I guarantee you've already overcome major adversity in your life. You need to know and understand you are already resilient. Question is, how much better can you get at becoming more resilient? So trying just a few of these techniques here and there, I believe in my heart will have a big impact on how you cope with the next time you experience failure. Now, as I wrap this up, I want to ask one additional question. I want you to think about this. As I was preparing for the show, it left me with this question. And actually, it's probably more of a statement, but I'll put it in the form of a question. Do you believe that your resiliency is directly proportional to your EQ? No, not your equalizer in the cart. No, I'm talking about emotional quotient. So your emotional quotient is your emotional development, your ability to process your thoughts and feelings in an effective manner and address them as much as you can in an unemotional way with those around you to have an effective outcome. I had Carolyn Dern on the show about a year ago, who was a professor at, I think, at the University of Michigan wrote a book on emotional quotient. And she said it's the issue of our day. It's why society has become so volatile, is the younger generation does not have well-developed emotional quotient. So when they feel grieved or upset, they act out like 5-year-olds. That's not the way adults should act, right? An adult should take the information in, should process it, consider all possibilities and the feelings and thoughts of other people before reacting. But we don't do that. We immediately react emotionally without ever considering the impact and effect it has on anyone around us. So let's go break windows, let's burn buildings, irregardless of how that's going to affect other people's lives, because it's all about me. So again, do you believe that your resiliency is directly proportional to your EQ? I do. I'd like to know what you think. Email me, drjay at PPP.life. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know your thoughts. If I'm way off on this, tell me. I'm okay. I'm cool with this. I like to think I have a high level of EQ. So if someone challenges me and gives me a better answer, I'll consider it. You're probably wrong. No, just kidding. No, I'm really just kidding. I really like to know what you think. And always say it, right? You can always reach out to me. I respond to everybody. Of course, perfect time to let you know, follow me on social media, Dr. J. LaGuardia at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Yeah, come and join the group, conversations, check out our reels, all that other stuff. My promotional team says, Jay, you're not great at self-promotion. I'm not, and I need to be, because that's what this industry is all about, self-promotion. But I kind of believe if the quality of the content is really good, you guys will share it with enough people, and this will continue to grow like it has. It's grown a lot. Because I believe, guys, great content should flow through us, not to us. What does that mean? It means we should be vessels of great content. When you read a great book, tell somebody about it, right? I'm getting done with two really good books here. One is by Patrick Bet-David, Your Next 5 Moves, The Master the Art of Business Strategy. One by John Maxwell, The Money Mindset. We're just finishing up in our Money Mindset group. Great resources. Really opens up your mind, expands your knowledge, gives you a different perspective. Great podcast. I love when someone sends me a link. Jay, you got to listen to the show. It's amazing. Okay, I'll check it out. If I can't listen to the whole show, I'll open up the notes section, look at the chapter, and see where I want to listen. So maybe I'm going to listen for 15 minutes, but I can check out the points that I feel that are more pertinent to the information I need to know. Great articles, whatever it might be. That's your responsibility. That's the only thing I ask of you. If you find this show inspires you, if the lesson within this show, if what I've shared with you touches you in any way, shape, or form, it's because you know it could impact someone else in a positive way. So it's your actual ethical and moral obligation to share it with that person, because knowing it could benefit them and not doing it, man, that's not living up to our responsibility as humans. And the only effect we can have as we traverse through this thing called life is the legacy and the impact we leave on other human beings. It's not the crap we accumulate. Can't take it with us. It's interesting. We just had a family member die not long ago. Within days, your stuff is gone. It's dispersed. Family takes it. Most of it goes, donated or junk, whatever the case may be. No, man, it's how you impact other people. So to have great impact is to share. So I hope you guys found this show interesting today on resiliency. I'm going to talk about grit coming up in the future here as well, too. Also going to be talking here about distractions and overcoming distractions. Man, it's hard in this world today, right? There's things that are constantly pulling at our attention and pulling us away from intention. And we've got to really get a grip on it. We got to figure out how to overcome it and not become a victim of the never-ending distractions that exist all around us. So, guys, I appreciate you taking time each week to join me. As always, you're awesome. I love you and appreciate you. And as I always say, you be you. Just be the best you. And I promise you will always empower your dreams, ignite your passion, and accelerate your prosperity. Guys, until next week, be well.